So the court today will now consider evidence. The Menendez brothers' counsel will most likely present a series of witnesses to try and provide additional evidence to the court. The prosecution has been doing just that, providing the court with as many facts in order for the court to make this final determination on whether or not the Menendezes have been rehabilitated and constitute that risk of danger to society, that if they don't constitute it, they can then have a resentencing, and if they do constitute it, then the resentencing will result in not being effectively resentenced. Because let me leave you with this, what the three options are for the court to do in this case. The court had the obligation, once it made a finding, essentially, that it was going to go forward on its own motion and the people's motion to have the resentencing hearing itself. But that doesn't mean that the court is obligated at the end of it to actually resentence the Menendez brothers. The court is not allowed to increase the sentence to the Menendez brothers, but it is under no obligation to actually change the sentence for the Menendez brothers. So that is one option, that after hearing all the evidence, the court decides not to change the sentence. The second option is that the court does resentence the Menendez brothers to a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. At that point, the Menendez brothers will then go to the parole board. If the parole board were to grant parole, or even if they were to deny parole, it would end up with Governor Newsom, and he makes the final determination, he and he alone, on whether or not the Menendez brothers will ever get out on parole. But there is a third option for the court to engage in today. Because when people talk about the sentence, the Menendez brothers' sentence, there's actually two sentences at play. One sentence was the sentence for the killing of Jose Menendez. As a first-degree murder violation with special circumstances, the sentence for the killing of Jose Menendez was life without the possibility of parole. But the second count was dealing with Kitty Menendez, a separate sentence. And that sentence also was life without the possibility of parole for the sentence of Kitty Menendez. So there is a possibility where a court could resentence the Menendez brothers based on the Jose Menendez killing and murder, but choose and then change that sentence from life without the possibility of parole to life with the possibility of parole. But separately, when considering the sentence dealing with Kitty Menendez, for factors that the court can consider unique to the sentence of Kitty Menendez, the court can decide not to change that sentence. So even though there will effectively have been a resentencing for Jose Menendez, there will not be one for Kitty Menendez, and the Menendez sentence overall will be life without the possibility of parole were that circumstance to happen. So again, we're going to have this resentencing hearing over the next several days, 2 days. I don't know if the judge will rule at the very end of it. He can decide to rule on in open court at the end of the hearing. He can decide to take it under submission. He might want to write an opinion about what his thoughts are. He might want to hold another court hearing and announce them from the bench. We don't know one way or the other. That will be up to the court. So that is the overview of what was going to happen today and tomorrow. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Hochman, you sound like you are almost recommending that the judge splits these cases. You sound like you're leaning towards that as an option. Is that true?
It is an option. What I wanted to do today is flag all the options that the court has.
Is there one that you prefer?
Well, again, what we have said is that the Menendez brothers are not ready for resentencing in this hearing. That because they have not engaged in the full panoply of admissions of their criminal conduct, that they're not ready for resentencing on either one of the convictions.
You would be comfortable with a resentencing on the Jose Menendez charge, but not on the Kitty?
No, just the opposite. No, the option that we have addressed in our papers and will be addressing in court is actually the first option. The first option being no resentencing at all. That you can have the resentencing hearing, but the Menendez brothers have not shown the true and complete insight into their actions. The comprehensive risk assessments establish them at a moderate level. And if and when they get back to the low level of risk, if and when they admit to the full range of their criminal conduct, at that point we're saying they might be in the position for a full resentencing. But we don't believe that is today.
You talked about the risk assessment. What is your greatest concern if they were released? They could possibly murder again?
The risk is a risk assessment for violence, whether it's murder or other types of violence. It is the concern that the Board of Parole's board-certified psychologists have in raising that risk assessment level from low to moderate. They're basically saying that while the Menendez brothers have been in prison, it's a highly structured environment. And if they're willing to break the rules in this highly structured environment, the confidence level that they're willing to comply with the rules, including rules that say effectively you can't engage in violent acts or other types of acts. These are the laws in our society. They have lost some level of confidence in, and they've made it known, again, to the Board of Parole, to the governor, and in this case, to the court itself.
District Attorney, are you concerned that their level of rule breaking would rise to someone getting hurt?
It's not my concern. It's the expert psychologists' concern in prison that have risen their risk level up to that moderate level. We've also added to it a whole range of lies that they have told for the last 30 years and have never come clean with, to again show that they have not fully accepted responsibility for all their criminal conduct, and in our minds not fully then rehabilitated and do constitute the risk for violence as well.
Can you talk about the conditions they're going to be in when they come out, though? Like, I'm just kind of curious if a lot of people, when they struggle and reoffend when they come out of prison, right, they come home with no resources, no money. They're going to come home to a family that supports them, a lot of money, some immediate job opportunities. Does any of that, in your mind, counterbalance the lying? Like, how do you play that out? I guess the other side of that equation. They're going to come home in a pretty beneficial situation, right?
So we look at the Menendez case not in isolation. There are literally dozens of criminal defendants every single month that make their pitch to my DA's office or DA's offices across the state and say, we want resentencing. And we have to be fair and treat these cases in a uniform way. So we're not going to give any special treatment just because the Menendezes, when they get out, might have additional resources that any other defendant might not have. The risk level is assessed both by the board-certified psychologists in connection with a review of the entire factual record to determine whether or not today, and I'm not talking in the future, but today, they justify resentencing, and we have said they don't today. Any other questions? Yes.
So the brothers are not expected to testify. We've been told it is possible that statements that they have written could be introduced on their behalf. If those statements do take accountability and sort of answer your questions, would that then force you to change direction when it comes to resentencing?
You know, what we have said is that the Menendez brothers unequivocally and sincerely accept full responsibility for all their actions and cover-ups, that we would reconsider our position. I'm not going to reconsider it in a vacuum. I certainly want to see exactly what they're saying, and as importantly, they have to convince the judge. Because while convincing the district attorney's office is certainly at some level important, the real important task is for them to convince the judge that they have unequivocally and sincerely come clean with all their criminal conduct. I don't know if a written statement by itself, it depends what it says, will go that far, but it's certainly something that we should consider, as should the court. Any one last question?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
What happened to the member of the Menudo that claimed the father molested him? What happened to that?
I don't know that particular situation as to what happened with that individual. Again, when it deals with sexual abuse, what we have said is that our focus is actually on the self-defense defense, because that wasn't us saying that. That was actually the Menendez brothers themselves testifying to it at trial. Again, when asked that question, did you kill your parents? Did you murder your parents that night because of sexual abuse? The answer was no. They said the reason they did it was they thought their parents, their mother and their father, were going to kill them that night. So they had to kill them first. All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.